Really? Up until last year, the patient leaflet said that withdrawal symptoms were not common and you cannot become addicted to SEROXAT. The leaflet's wording was approved by the regulator. So was it helpful to tell patients that they couldn't become addicted to SEROXAT?
No, it wasn't.
What do you think patients would have understood by that?
Well, they would have understood that it wasn't habit forming and that really when the time came for them to stop their drugs, they would have no problem in stopping them. And clearly the evidence didn't support that.
Do you think the regulator should have insisted on something clearer in the patient information leaflet?
Yes.
I am absolutely fuming that this drug was allowed to be put on the market with completely misleading information, that people like me were taking it, believing what we were told, our doctors believing what they were being told. There is no reason why I should be sitting here today in the state that I am, because the regulators knew about this problem, GlaxoSmithKline knew about this problem, but they did nothing. And they have changed the course of my life and thousands of other lives.
It was clear from the information I saw that the original trial data showed there were quite severe withdrawal issues. It was clear the studies were not done as well as they could be done compared to modern day standards, but ultimately there was no mistaking. There was a very clear issue that withdrawal really affected people, particularly at higher dosages and at long periods of using the drug. And that information has been in the vaults of the MHRA for over a decade, and known to the manufacturer indeed for over a decade.
In June last year, the leaflet underwent a dramatic transformation. The claim that you cannot become addicted to SEROXAT was removed, and startling new statistics about the frequency of withdrawal effects were added. Out of the blue, patients were told that 1 in 4 people could now experience withdrawal problems, some of them very severe indeed. So why did a proper warning come 12 years after the drug was first licensed?
It takes time for clinical trial evidence to become available.
It takes 12 years to find out that a quarter of people taking one of the most widely prescribed antidepressants will suffer withdrawal problems.
The problem of
is that your position?
The problem of withdrawal was highlighted early on. We were unable to give precise figures. As time has gone on...
Why were you unable to? You're supposed to protect the public. You're supposed to listen to the public. Why were you unable to give a figure?
Because we did not have reliable information available to us on which to base advice on figures.
GlaxoSmithKline says it gave the regulator the results of some clinical trials in the year 2000. It was from these that the 1 in 4 figure was drawn and added to the patient leaflet 3 years later. However, neither the company nor the MHRA will tell us when these studies were originally carried out.
The regulator should be covered in shame to admit that they had failed to spot an adverse effect which people had been sounding off about on the internet by their thousands and thousands, and suddenly to admit that this side effect is real after all and that it affects a quarter of all users. I think the regulator should be deeply ashamed.
There is no other agency which has kept these drugs under such constant and careful review since 1990 as we have done, and we will continue to do so in the interests of the public health.
For years, patients and their families have tried to tell the regulator about dependence, about self-harm, about the risk to children, about the risk of suicide, and for years they've been ignored. Do you trust the regulator?
No, not anymore. No, I don't.
How can you trust him? You know, when someone is in that as much authority as they've got, supposed to be looking after everybody in the country, is lying about the information that they've got, you cannot trust them. It's impossible to trust them.
Without trust, we can't be sure we're being told everything about the medicines we take.
I think this is actually an issue that probably goes beyond SEROXAT, and I
find it hard not to believe there aren't other drugs that might be in the same category as SEROXAT that have lacked that robust, clear analysis that's allowed us to make a decision about how they should be used, what information people need before they use them. So I actually think this is a major issue for us in the UK.
Do you think this whole episode has wider implications? It's not just about SEROXAT or antidepressants.
Oh no, it has huge implications. I think once again we're seeing the SSRIs being the focus for something much wider in psychiatry, and we're seeing psychiatry being the focus for something much, much wider in medicine as a whole. I think, a few years down the line, we're going to be talking about this with many more sorts of medication than psychotropic medication.
Do you think this has ramifications right through medicine as a whole?
Right through medicine, right through medicine.
There's no doubt SEROXAT helps many people, but what about those who've been harmed? It was the regulator's job to protect them. Its failure to do so must raise serious concerns about whether the regulator's advice on other prescription medicines can be taken on trust. You shouldn't stop or change any medicine without first consulting your doctor. You can call the BBC Action Line on 08000 688 456 if you want to be put in touch with an organisation that can help you. Calls are free and confidential. If you want to comment on the programme, you can visit our website